All right, everyone, welcome. I'm going to call the January 10th Planning Commission meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Chairman Wyckoff,
Here.
First Vice Chair Kerr,
Here.
Second Vice Chair Brooks. Here. Commissioner Noble,
Here.
Commissioner Connolly,
Here.
Commissioner Latzo.
Here.
You push your button there. Did you push your button?
Here.
Thank you. And Commissioner Marr.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now we have time for public comment. Want to let everyone know you're welcome to speak on any topic except for a topic that's on our agenda for this evening. If you would like to speak on an agenda topic, please do so when that agenda item is up for discussion. You're limited to 3 minutes at this time, please. And if anybody has anything to say, I invite you to come forward. Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the approval of the minutes from December 6, 2021 meeting. Do we have a motion to accept those minutes?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from Planning Commission meeting 1/20/6/21.
Okay, that's 12/6/21.
Oh, okay.
For clarification,
Trying to
December
read that.
6, 2021.
Got it.
Okay, without any corrections, do I have a second for that, please?
I'll second. You go ahead.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. And if you'll please call the roll.
Commissioner Kerr,
Yes.
Commissioner Latzo,
Yes.
Commissioner Connolly,
Yes.
Commissioner Marr,
Yes.
Commissioner Noble,
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks,
Yes.
and Chairman Wyckoff.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our first item of new business is the Schooner Development Agreement. So at this time, I'd like to ask for the staff report. Thank you. Oh, we're going to flip it? Okay. Oh, we're going to do the applicant presentation first. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. Katie Cole with the law firm of Hill Ward Henderson, representing the applicant JBB Schooner regarding the development agreement. Happy New Year. As you all just approved the minutes of the December meeting, you'll recall that last month, the Schooner Resort was here for a proposed new or amended, depending on the status of the litigation, PD, and you all recommended approval of that PD to the City Commission. The plan development and redevelopment plan will move forward to the City Commission this week, actually, for its first reading. One of the conditions of approval of the plan development zoning is to enter into a development agreement with the city to reflect those conditions of approval and in fact add additional restrictions and confines. And so tonight's hearing is about that development agreement only. So it's not about the other items. So there was a new application that was filed in December, and that is what you heard last month. And this is a new DA that you're hearing this month. So I just wanted to be clear on that. So today's request is the planning board to recommend approval of the proposed development agreement, which accompanies the plan development rezoning and redevelopment plan approvals in attempts to put everything in one document instead of relying upon the 3 other approvals that would be necessary to move this project forward. It includes the concept plans, the PD conditions of approval, and requires a restrictive covenant that runs with the land to limit noise on the occupied roof and limit the development seaward of the coastal construction control line. These are the renderings that are part of the concept plan package, which are included as an exhibit to the development agreement and are also memorialized in the PD. The elevation with the height. The site plan of the hotel on the west side of Gulf Boulevard. And the site plan of the parking garage on the east side of Gulf Boulevard. That includes a fountain there as a public space in the back, and then the parking on the ground floor with the retail. The rooftop amenity level. A development agreement, your code has requirements of things that have to be included in a development agreement, but there aren't specific standards of approval. This isn't a quasi judicial hearing where you're weighing evidence. This is a legislative decision of the board as to whether to enter into this agreement. Under state law, the only requirement is that a development agreement meet the requirements of state law and be consistent with the comprehensive plan. By virtue of the project being consistent with the comprehensive plan, the DA is as well. I don't want to necessarily spend too much time rehashing everything that we did last month, but this just goes through the consistency with the comprehensive plan, looking to be regulated with land development obligations, the density and intensity averaging that's provided. This is compatible with the land use designation of PD. A PD is required to use to get the height necessary to accommodate, and the density and intensity averaging. It's the preferred way to provide the aggregation of the sites to be able to do that, coupled with the development agreement. It also balances the density and intensity and has a lower density and intensity on the east side of Gulf Boulevard, which is adjacent to the residential neighborhoods, and makes it more intense on the west side of Gulf Boulevard. One of the requirements of the plan development adoption that we reviewed last month, but just wanted to highlight, is what is in the public interest. It's redeveloping an antiquated and vacant property. It's promoting infill redevelopment. The comp plan is supportive of specific mixed use and pedestrian supported development. It looks to have tourist uses and transient uses on the west side of Gulf Boulevard, which is also contemplated in your comprehensive plan. Just to remind you how the density and intensity is calculated for the project, looking at the east and west sides of the property and taking an average of those. And so today we would recommend approval of the proposed development agreement, which accompanies the planned development rezoning and the redevelopment plan approvals that we hope to have come forward. I know that Jenny and the staff will go through the specific checklist in the code, so I don't want to waste your time to do that. I did want to ask, in reviewing the DA over the past month with the staff and the city attorney, there are 4 changes to the draft that you have, 2 that are minor and 2 that I want to spend a moment to speak about. So the first change is in section T number 2, dealing with the time period to acquire the property by the developer. The draft in front of you has a time period of 6 months, and the developer has asked for this time period to be lengthened to 10 months. The code requires, upon adoption of the plan development, for site plans to be submitted and go through the approval process fairly quickly within 6 months and have vertical construction within 12. It is contemplated that from a business standpoint and financing, this would be an acquisition and construction loan altogether. And so the developer would like the time period to actually acquire all of the building permits prior to closing, instead of closing within 6 months and then obtaining the building permits thereafter and moving forward. So we're not asking for any of the code time periods to be changed. This is simply an obligation in the development agreement. It's not reflected in the land development code in any other manner. This was included in the DA to give the city the comfort that the developer it's been working with over the past 1.5 years on this project is in fact the developer who is going to close and move forward on it. And we've just asked for 10 months instead of 6 for the reasons I've outlined. The second change is section T number 12. There simply was a word dropped at the end of that sentence, the word project with a capital P. It was just a typo. The third change is on the signature page to add a second signature line for the second manager of the purchase as the developer entity. There's been a new operating agreement that was entered into among the developers. And so it just is to accommodate that. And then the last change is something that we realized was included at the last hearing. You asked the staff to work with the developer to amend the garage plans to reflect something that was reflective of the hotel and integrated the pedestrian use and was a bit more attractive. And the developer has been working on that, but the old plan is included in your agreement. The new plan is not here tonight for you to look at. So we would ask for your recommendation of approval with the same type of condition that you provided on the PD recommendation of approval, was that for staff to continue to work with the developer to present a plan consistent with your expectations and their agreement on the garage. So the height of the garage, the site data table, the number of parking spaces, all of that is the same. The 107 parking spaces, a two-story garage with parking on top. So it's 3 parking levels. It's simply the exterior design. So those were the 4 changes. We do have Robert Portalisi with Gulf Coast Consulting, who's a transportation planner and did the traffic study, has also worked on the parking counts to ensure compliance with the code here. Again, not to waste your time rehashing everything we did last month in this type of hearing, he's here and available to answer questions as needed. So with that, I'm happy to turn it over to staff or answer any questions.
Thank you. Anyone on the board on the planning commission have a question? Mr. Kerr?
Just about that last portion.
The garage.
Yeah, on the garage, on working with the staff, was that I don't remember an exact item being put in on the last meeting. I know we spoke about residents having a refuge for tropical storms. Is that what you're referencing, or is it something different?
We were talking about the actual design of the garage, but to your point, Commissioner Kerr, Mr. Kerr, we did not include in the DA an obligation for evacuation options, but it is a public, it is, I would need to work with Mr. Trask because we don't want to undermine the number of required parking spaces.
No,
that we
I
have.
I understand, and that's why I didn't recommend that we put that in as a requirement.
Right.
But I didn't know if that was what you were referencing. It was a little,
I was simply
ambiguous.
referencing the exterior design
okay,
of the garage.
okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Any more? Sir?
So basically what you're saying is you are possibly going to change the design of the exterior.
The design of the exterior garage will be changed. Because
Right now, it's just square with 2 cupolas, one on each end.
And the
And it's just
vegetation,
very,
correct. You can see on page, in the concept plan,
I've looked at it.
yes. And so
it's-
that was a
it's-
comment from staff and from you all that you wanted to see a better designed garage, yes.
The design of the building is beautiful. The garage is not, pardon the expression. If you could just break it up. And then what are you putting as far as landscaping to
Cer-
somewhat soften the building?
Certainly. The
King
land,
palms, like 30, 40 feet tall to kind of like,
I'm flipping through the pages to see if I can tell you which page is the landscape plan in here. The landscape
I'm
plan,
just trying to
sure.
make it look, as good as the building.
Sure.
And I know it's a parking garage and it's square. And I know you're trying to get as many cars in that as possible. But still, there's got to be something to add.
Agreed.
Thank you.
All right, now that we reach agreement on that. Anybody else on our planning commission have any questions for the applicant? No? Okay, thank you very much. I guess at this point, I do need to make a note that we did receive, I'm hoping all of you received on the planning commission, we did receive an email that was asked to be discussed, or at least noted. It wasn't received till 5:16 this evening, so it was kind of a late entry. It was addressed to all of us on the planning commission as well as Mr. Trask. So Mr. Trask, I'll ask you if there's anything that we need to do to address anything in that email at this point.
I just think that what you need to do is just to reference the person that sent the email
Okay.
and the time that it was sent.
Okay,
And in addition to that, the reference or anything in it that you think is important based upon your reading of it.
okay. So the email was received from Mr. William Gay at 5:15 and 58 seconds officially, according to my email supplier. It was addressed to everyone on the planning commission as well as to Mr. Trask. Basically, it is stating that there is a possibility that the time period for approval of the schooner has expired. It says to ask Mr. Trask to address the questions, some questions for consideration. Mr. Trask, I believe, has reviewed said email, and based on your understanding of it, we're in good order.
So first of all, I just wanted to make it absolutely clear, the email was not sent to me. It was forwarded to me by one of the planning commission members
see.
a few
Sorry.
minutes before the meeting.
Okay.
There are a number of questions that Mr. Gay raises in the email that he has sent. They all, actually there's 8 of them. I think they all basically revolve around the fact of timing and whether or not moving forward with this particular application is moot because of the fact that there had been a significant period of time that elapsed from the original application being filed. But you should just know that this is not the first application. This is the second.
Mhm.
So the timing requirements that he asks for you to consider are not subject to this particular application.
Okay.
So I would leave it as that. I did want to mention also that there was a second email that came from Mr. Mike Burke, and that evidently came in at 5-something this evening too. I don't know if the commission has received that. It looks like it's only been sent to the city clerk and the planning director. It also is a letter with regard to this particular hearing. It's from Mike Burke. And he has a number of questions also. His email, which is dated January 10th at 4:02 p.m., doesn't really say that he wants you to consider any of the information in it. It's just a whole bunch of questions that I think that he's asking for staff to answer for him. So I just want to let you know that there had been a second email that came in just before this meeting, and I wanted
Okay.
to put it on the record.
None of us have been privy to that particular email.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pass it down. So maybe you can, each one of you take a look at it as it goes, since it wasn't forwarded to you. I know it's 3 pages long, but at least you'll have the opportunity to see what I saw a couple minutes ago.
Take a visual photo of it, I guess, right? Okay,
But with that, we could go right on to staff presentation, Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
thank you. We'll have our staff presentation, please.
Okay. So you know where the proposed schooner location will be. As Attorney Cole has mentioned in her presentation. This is an aerial overlay showing the project location with the current zoning. And what is the development agreement? So this is a legally binding contract authorized by state statute and the City of Madeira Beach's Code of Ordinances between a property owner or developer and a local government, often including terms not otherwise required through existing regulations. These agreements can specify various elements of the development process. To establish a development agreement, the developer and the local government both work with legal counsel to develop and execute a contract that binds all parties. The development agreement provides assurances to the developer that the development regulations that apply to the project will not change during the term of the agreement. The city may require conditions to mitigate project impacts as well as clarification about the project phasing and public improvements. So here is the Beachside site plan, which has a hotel, and the East Side site plan that includes the retail parking structure and open space site, which is on the east side of Gulf Boulevard. So there are notice requirements, both in the Florida statutes, it's 163, 3225, and in the Madeira Beach Code of Ordinances, section 86-144. They're both very similar, as you can see. So that there's a post notice minimum of 15 days prior to the hearing that was completed, an advertisement in the newspaper at least 7 days before the Planning Commission that was also completed, and a mail out to property owners 200 feet from the property 15 days prior to the hearing. And in this slide, you can see all the photos of the posting, the affidavit of mailing, and then the newspaper advertisement. So I will be going through section 86-145 of the Code of Ordinances and Florida Statutes 163, 3227, which has the development agreement content that Ms. Cole mentioned in her presentation. So number one, a legal description of the land subject to the agreement and the names of its legal and equitable owners. So the legal description is in Exhibit A, and the legal and equitable owners are on pages 1, 11, and 14 of the development agreement. Number two, the duration of the agreement. In recital 4 discusses the duration of the agreement, that the agreement shall terminate upon the earlier of the following dates, the date on which the construction of the project is complete and the issuance of a valid CO, or 6 years from the effective date. So as long as there's an active construction activity of the properties consistent with this agreement, the agreement shall be deemed effective. We'll go to number 3. The development uses permitted on the land, including population densities and building intensities and height. Recital Q, which discusses the project, the demolition of the existing improvements located on the west parcels, and the construction of an 8-story hotel building, which is 7 over parking, inclusive of the rooftop amenity level, with 53 transient accommodation units and 3 residential units, and related infrastructure and improvements. And the demolition of the existing improvements on the east parcels, with the construction of 1-story retail structure on the east parcels, which shall be integrated into a 3-story parking deck structure to provide parking for all the improvements which are part of the project. It's also located on the site data table, which is on sheet ASP1 of the concept plan, which is page 25 of the development agreement. And here's the site data table. See the zoning, the future land use districts, the density, building height, the FAR, and then below there is the FAR data sheet. So number 4, a description of public facilities that will serve the development, including who shall provide such facilities, the date any new facilities, if needed, will be constructed, and a schedule to assure public facilities are available concurrent with the impacts of the development. Recital L, the developer will complete a concurrency evaluation for the project and determine that the public facilities and services are sufficient to serve the project. Accordingly, upon approval and full execution of the agreement, the developer shall permit the water, wastewater, and reclaimed water through Pinellas County, permit the stormwater water management system through the Southwest Florida Water Management District, and permit the solid waste, recreation, and open space capacity through the city. In 11, public facilities, the parties acknowledge that all infrastructure and service for fire protection, potable water and sanitary sewer to meet domestic and fire flow levels of service as required for the project and are available to the properties, and that no new additional or upsize facilities are required. So number 5, the description of any reservation or dedication of land for public purposes, and there are none. Number 6, a description of all local development permits approved or needed to be approved for the development of the land. Recital S, in consideration of the developer's compliance with all of the conditions and obligations as set forth in this agreement, the developer shall be entitled to apply for and obtain building permits and receive certificates of occupancy for the development of the project. Recital 10 has quite a few. So 4, all construction associated with the project shall be subject to the requirements of the Florida Building Code, city's land development regulations, the Florida Fire Prevention Code, and other technical codes adopted to the city and FEMA in existence of the time of the building permit approval. 5, all on-site construction activities related to erosion control shall be applied as required by the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System, SWIFMUD, and the city's Code of Ordinances. 6, proof of the SWIFMUD environmental resource permit approval or exemption of the drainage requirements is required prior to CO being issued by the city for any portion of the project. 7, proof of FDOT drainage connection permits required prior to the CO being issued by the city or for any portion of the project. 8, final approval of the city's engineer and civil and utility site plan and construction plans prior to building permits being issued by the city for any portion of the project. And continuing, recital T, number 9, final approval of the city's Public Works Department of the plans for solid waste collection prior to building permits being issued by the city. 10, final approval of the city's fire chief of the site plan as it relates to fire codes. 11, final approval of the community service department and the city's civil engineer for site compliance with the site plan requirements of the land development code prior to CO. 12, receipt of the developer by the developer of all necessary permits and approvals from FDOT and construction of the FDOT improvements prior to CO being issued. Number 14, the developer executing and recording the unity of title of all the parcels. 12, permits. Development permits which may need to be approved and issued, including but are not limited to the following: city building permits, SWIFMUD surface water management permit, Pinellas County utility permit, FDOT right-of-way connection permit. All other approvals or permits as required by existing governmental regulations at the time of development review application. And 6, failure of this agreement to address a particular permit, condition, term, restriction, or to require development permission shall not relieve the developer of the necessary of complying with the law governing said permitting requirements, conditions, terms, or restrictions in any matter that or thing required under existing ordinances of the city or regulations of any other governmental agency or of any entity having legal authority over the properties. And number 7, a finding that the development permitted or proposed is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan and land development regulations. Recital P, the city has determined that the concept plan is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan and land development regulations, subject to certain conditions as provided. And we'll go through those conditions. Number 8, a description of any conditions, terms, restrictions, or other requirements determined to be necessary by the city for public health, safety, or welfare of its citizens. No conditions, terms, restrictions, or other requirements determined necessary by the city for public health, safety, or welfare of its citizens. 9, the concept plan, the city shall not consent to any substantial modification unless it deems that such is best interest of the public, and in its discretion in reaching such decision, it shall be deemed to be acting in a legislative capacity and within its sole and absolute discretion, taking into account the public health, safety, and welfare. Exhibit C, the restrictive covenant. No amplified sound on the rooftop or pool deck of the hotel. Also no development, full restaurant services and tables, standard chairs or picnic tables west of the CCCL. Number 9, a statement indicating that failure of this agreement to address a particular permit, condition, term, or restriction shall not relieve the developer of the necessity of complying with the law governing said permitting requirements, condition, term, or restrictions. And 6, failure of this agreement to address a particular permit, condition, term, restriction, or to require development permission shall not relieve the developer of the necessity of complying with the laws governing said permitting requirements, conditions, terms of restrictions in any manner or thing requiring under existing ordinances of the city or regulations of any other governmental agency or any other entity having legal authority over the properties, except as provided in this agreement. All applicable impact fees, development review fees, building permit fees, and other fees of any type and kind shall be paid by the developer. And number 10, such additional information or requirement as the city may determine necessary. So in recital T, the development rights are set forth in agreement. Approval are subject to the following conditions, 1 through 19. And so now we'll go through those conditions that you saw with the rezone. So A, in existing conditions, demolition and CSWM plan is required and will be available per the NTDS permit at the development review. In section 14-123, all utilities serving the proposed facility must be underground. Please add a note to the final development plans to show connectivity, specifically the overhead aerial located on the north side of 145th Avenue must be underground. C, provide location of fire department connection on final site plan. D, provide authorization from FDOT for new crosswalk location adjacent to property as condition on final site plan. If FDOT authorization cannot be obtained, the site plans must be reevaluated for pedestrian access. E, provide a statement and plan on the final site plan detailing requirements for a valet parking system for hotel guests to mitigate the danger of pedestrian auto conflict between the hotel building on the west and the parking on the east. Unless and until the Florida Department of Transportation provides this crosswalk with the associated protective lighting and signaling to a position directly between the hotel and the parking on the east side of Gulf Boulevard, valet services shall be available 24/7 as a condition of a development plan approval. When the crosswalk is provided as described, valet services will continue to be provided during the hours of food and beverage operations plus 1/2 hour after. The development will be required to meet all appropriate land development regulations during the development review process. G, the hotel can provide hotel guests with lounge type chairs and cabanas for use on the beach and will provide services to these guests as is customary for hotels. Non-hotel guests will have access to the restaurant for the hotel, but full restaurant services will not be extended to the beach and no tables or standard chairs or picnic tables and seating will be allowed. This is also reflected in the restrictive covenant. H, the hotel and events operation will utilize the beach area for special events approved by the city's special events permit. I, hotel staff will police the area used by customers to ensure it is clean and free of debris of any kind, and that all furnishing and equipment are removed nightly in accordance with leave no trace requirements per city ordinance. J, where turtle nests are found, hotel access and operation will be altered as needed to ensure the integrity of the nest and safety of the hatchlings. All hotel rooms and public areas will be posted with permanent notices regarding sea turtle safety and requirements. All turtle lighting requirements, including window tinting, are mandatory as may be updated and amended from time to time, will be met on an ongoing basis during turtle seasons per Florida state statutes and city ordinances. K, the design of the retail and structured parking will include architectural detail or a unique design to disguise the parking floors of the building, creating a consistent aesthetic with the first floor commercial. L, a dune walkover is required from the hotel ground floor to beach access to ensure preservation and protection of the dune system. M, the dumpster of the hotel may require more space. The site is allowed to lose one parking space to increase the dumpster size in the hotel area. The dumpster size will be determined at the site plan stage. N, the residential medium lot located on 145th Avenue, shown as a park on the concept plan, can include private recreation area ancillary to private residential use through the PD process. However, responsibility for construction, maintenance, security, and liability for the park rests with the developer and landowner. As an ancillary use, the lot can be developed only for service of the principal use, which is residential, 3 units allowed by the redevelopment, and as such would not serve the public benefit. Staff recommends the lot to be designed for open space and the level of drainage that could otherwise be required to accommodate the allowed 0.7 impervious surface ratio area. O, the parking area must meet the design standards of the Madeira Beach Code of Ordinances, Chapter 110, zoning article 7, off-street parking and loading. P, the development must meet all the floodplain requirements in Chapter 94 of the Madeira Beach Code of Ordinances. Areas below base flood elevation plus 4 feet of freeboard in the coastal A zone will be allowed for use as enclosed dry floodproof space as only when a signed and sealed engineering report from a registered engineer from the state of Florida states the flood velocity does not exceed 5 foot per second and shows a conformance with certain human intervention limits can be achieved. And Q, which is the last, no activity involving amplified sound shall be conducted exterior to or upon the rooftop amenity level or pool deck of the hotel, provided, however, the foregoing shall not preclude the use of music in connection with the rooftop amenity level or pool deck of the hotel, so as long as the music is directed towards the west and is otherwise baffled to prevent the sound from traveling to the north, south, or east of the hotel building. The developer shall enter into a separate recordable form restrictive covenant in favor of the city, setting forth the aforesaid use restrictions. The form of the restrictive covenant will be attached to the development agreement as Exhibit C. Outdoor uses and activities are allowed for these parcels in accordance with the land use designation and all city ordinances in effect of the date the hotel building permit is issued. And going back to section 86-145 and 163, 3227. B, a development agreement may provide that the entire development or any phase thereof be commenced or completed within a specific time period. So in 4, which is page 6 of the development agreement, discusses the duration of the agreement and that this agreement shall terminate upon the earlier of the following dates. the date on which the construction of the project is complete, and issued a valid CO, or 6 years from the effective date. Staff recommends the approval of the development agreement, including exhibits A through C and associated with the schooner project. Also, going back to Ms. Cole's presentation with the four items, city is in agreement with these changes and recommends approval with those 4 changes. Changing section T2 to 10 months, changing section T12 to add the word project, and adding a signatory line, and then discussing changing the garage design, working with staff to change the garage design.
Thank you very much for the thorough presentation. Sir? Sure, you have a question?
I do. The last page, duration of agreement shall terminate. Does that mean that the conditions that are applied here will terminate at any given time versus being transferred with the property?
Yes, so that goes with the conditions. And then there's also a restrictive covenant, so that will run with the land. So that includes the no building west of the CCCL, and with like the picnic tables and standard chairs, as well as the noise, the no amplified music.
Okay, but there's a few other ones as far as, like the turtle nesting and the lighting. And so all the conditions that are not connected to actual construction, I'll say, they will not terminate at the end of this agreement and will stay with the property and convey if the property were to be sold. Is that correct?
That is not correct.
That's not
Just so I'm just going to jump in here. Legally, those things will go away. Obviously, the law will not change. So any code provisions that are in effect in the state statute or the city code relative to the turtle issue, they'll still be obligated to comply with the code. So it doesn't necessarily need to be in the development agreement. They'll still be obligated to do that.
All right, but some of the, like the noise, that's not specific in the code, but it's specific in the development agreement. So it doesn't convey, and they were to sell the property, the new management may elect to operate the hotel differently.
The restrictive covenant limits the issue relative to the noise. So that will be recorded and that will always run with the land. So those 2 or 3 issues that Jenny had mentioned will always run with the land. Some of the other conditions that are listed will go away, except for the fact if they were relating to the code or the state statute, those will always have to be complied with. They don't get a pass on the law.
Yeah, Ray, on Article 1 of the Declaration of Restrictions is the noise portion, and it specifically, and the no development west of the CCCL, it specifically states that this is a covenant that runs with the land in that portion of the Exhibit C, which will be attached to the.
That
DA, which
all
gets
makes sense. I
recorded.
just wanted to
Yeah,
bring
but
it up
there's
and
some of the other
hear-
things
hear
don't.
that.
That one specifically does.
Okay.
Any other questions for the city?
Yeah, just, I have a question regarding condition Q. All right, no activity involving amplified sound. However, that does not preclude the use of music. So what are we accomplishing here?
Just that there's no amplified sound on either the roof deck or the pool deck. And you can also see in page 54 of the restrictive covenant that also discusses the no amplified sounds on the exterior of the rooftop or pool deck.
Yeah, I get that. But then it says, but you can have music.
The acoustic,
Am
Like
I-
an
music,
acoustic
yeah,
guitar.
nothing amplified. Is what, is that a correct interpretation?
That's correct.
Yeah.
All right.
So no speakers, but like an acoustic guitar would.
Okay. Good.
I have a question too. Sorry, I'm digging for it. Hold on a second. Sorry. I'm trying to find it in the pages, but it was condition N that you went through a bit ago about the park / could be something else. I was a little bit confused. That right there. The residential medium lot located on 145th Avenue showed as a park can include private recreation area ancillary to a private residential use. So does that mean it could be developed into potentially a 3-unit residential? Am I misunderstanding that? I may
So
be.
through that redevelopment process that you all saw last month, those 3 units are being moved over to the west side.
I got you. Okay,
Yeah, so
Thank you.
that will not be developed as
got it.
a triplex.
Clear as day now. Thank you. I was reading it backwards, sort of, so thank you for that. Okay, Mr. Kerr?
Yeah, just a couple other items here. I'm happy to see the condition K actually in detail there. That's because early on we did talk about, and it wasn't at the last meeting, it was at a prior meeting about the architectural detail, that garage not looking like a garage. So I don't know how far back from Gulf Boulevard that'll carry, but that's hopefully in the discussion with staff. But, and I don't know if now's the time to bring it up, but I've had some, there's been a lot of talk and consideration about the valet parking and how that'll look, whether they do it or not, but regardless whether it's done or not, there will be traffic from the hotel to the garage. And I don't know if there's any detailed plan of how that will look. Is it the valet, it's so close that the entrance to the hotel and 146th Street, I believe it is, that when no traffic, you just shoot straight across or not, or I believe that there should be some traffic pattern provided out that the guests or valet would take to and from the hotel. And if any additions to the median to prevent any pedestrian traffic from trying to not use a crosswalk. I'd like to bring that up now to make sure it's in the record to have that discussed.
We have not seen, staff has not seen a traffic circulation plan for that valet service.
There is not currently a traffic circulation plan or as that would be developed in conjunction with FDOT. The applicant has met with FDOT about the location of any potential crosswalks, medians. Through the DOT process, we would expect there would be conditions of approval from DOT relative to that traffic circulation. In our meeting with DOT, we were very clear that that garage is to service the hotel and there will be potentially valet and hotel guests crossing that street, going back and forth. So we can certainly, I would venture to guess, I don't think there is a condition about DOT and its approval. If you would prefer us to beef that up, but I don't know that we would be able to commit to a plan without having our DOT permits.
I understand, but I think the importance going down the road, I mean, a high traffic time, and I'm going to speak of traffic, I mean, at the hotel, registered guests signing in, there may be a urgency to move cars, and I don't want to see a valet staff making shortcuts. So I think that should be outlined in the plan at some point, whether it's now or with the FDOT, but just, I wanted to bring it up.
Ms. Rowan, would that be a condition of final site plan? Would an MOT or a traffic circulation plan, the access management plan?
We could do that in the site plan process?
It's provided for in condition D. Provide authorization from FDOT for new crosswalk location adjacent to the property as a condition of the final site plan. If FDOT authorization cannot be obtained, the site plans must be reevaluated for pedestrian access.
You're also looking for vehicular access.
But I see that, but I don't see anything as far as how that traffic pattern, I've used the correct terms, I'm sure, but I don't see that outlined anywhere.
It is not, because it is to be forthcoming in the final site plan process in conjunction with FDOT. But perhaps in addition to new crosswalk location, would it be better if we expanded that condition to reflect and traffic circulation?
Yes, please.
I'm looking at my traffic guy and my app and my client. Yes, in traffic circulation, we're fine with that change.
So that's going to be added to condition D.
That would be the appropriate place.
At the end of it, add a traffic circulation plan. Okay, any more questions for city staff from anyone on the planning commission? Thank you very much. Okay, so I guess at this time, we can invite the public for comment. I'll ask you to keep your comments on the topic, and you'll be limited to 3 minutes per speaker, please. When you step up to the podium, please state your name and your address for the record. Come on down.
Good evening, Chuck Dillon, 529 Lillian Drive. I like the idea of everything and what's going on, with two major exceptions. Is anybody concerned about the setbacks? I mean, have you guys really looked at them? There's 10-foot setbacks for each of the parking garage, 5 foot on Gulf Boulevard. There's no setback on Gulf, on the beach. They're going all the way to the CCL line. Also, the height. I mean, it's always been an issue, 105 feet out there. And also drawings for the rest of the floors. They were in the original plans, but they're not really there anymore. There's going to be a lot of rooms. They originally ranged from 580 square feet to 945 square feet. Those plans have just been forgotten about. And other than that, yeah, I mean, like I say, the setbacks, I'm really concerned about them. They are going all the way to the very edge. And you got a 150-foot piece of property that you got a 5-foot setback on one side and 10 foot on the other side. And they're building all the way to the waterway. I would love to have those setbacks when I built my house. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like this? Come up.
Good evening. My name is Jean Farnan. I'm at 574 Johns Pass Avenue. And as just a regular citizen, the height is very objectionable. And I'll give you an example. It doesn't seem like the staff is learning anything from their mistakes. Last week at 5 to 1 in the afternoon, I went by the Barefoot Beach Resort, and all of Gulf Boulevard was in its shadow. So you're going to have this huge building on one side and the parking garage, which the figures that are proposed here or disclosed are really not accurate. They are not from street level. They are above the flood elevation plus the freeboard. So the figures that the 105 feet and the 39 feet add 14 feet to that. So, you know, you're going to create a cavern and you're going to create a precedent. And with this all being so great, I mean, where are the solar panels? Where are the charging stations? I don't see anything involved in that and the type of clientele that you want to attract to this hotel resort would definitely be wanting charging stations because there is not one charging station in this entire city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
My name's Randy Higwood and I'm 1417 Gulf Boulevard. I know there's a lot of people that do have some opinions of this project. And not a lot of people are bringing up is what the condition of the project is now. And being as I'm across the street, I do live that on a regular basis. I think it's a good thing to have the improvement to change from what it is right now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, anyone else? We're open for comments. Okay. Seeing no more, we'll call the public comment time closed and any more discussion from the Board of Commissioners?
I have something. Just on the heels of the concern for the pedestrians. In E, it is laid out pretty detailed of what's required for the crosswalk and the valet service. So I think that they're going to, I mean, to me, this is a very good definition in telling the developer what they have to do for the conditions on E. Provide a statement and plan. I think that addresses the concern of pedestrians and cars and all of that.
I do have something to point out on the recitals on page 1. We missed a letter in the enumeration of the recitals. It's A, B, C, D, F. So it's just a scrivener's error, obviously, but probably something that we need to correct. Yeah, just to make sure. And then as we're referencing in our changes, we can make sure those follow suit. And I guess I need to, where was I going with that? I had another question about the other email that was received. Do we need to bring that up during the public comment time, discussion time?
If everybody's had the opportunity to review it,
The printed.
then that is
email?
all that's required. I
Okay.
just want to make sure everybody had an opportunity to review it.
Okay, so that would be considered public comment, I suppose, at this point.
Yes,
and-
yes.
okay, And it's been accepted. Okay. Anyone else from the planning commission got anything to say? Any further discussion? Questions for the city, for the attorney, Mr. Kerr?
I concur with Commissioner Brooks. However, I still would like that statement placed in there as far as the traffic patterns being outlined. You have the right term. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, well, if there's not any more discussion, I guess it's time for someone to bring forward a motion. Here I sit. Since I can't do it.
I'll make a motion to accept the Schooner Development Agreement. I don't know if I have a reference number or whatever, but as presented with the addition of any comments made at tonight's meeting.
Okay, so for clarity, it would be recommending approval of the development agreement.
Yes,
That's
correct.
in that it's in keeping with the comprehensive plan. And subject to, we probably want to enumerate the additions. Is that correct, Mr. Trask?
Right. I want to make sure that
Read
we're
them into the
absolutely
record.
clear that if we're talking about all comments, we won't know what those are. So it would be a
Right.
motion to approve the development agreement as presented with the 4 changes that have been suggested, which was add the word project, add the signature line, change 6 months to 10 months
Months.
for the acquisition, And then lastly, require the city and the developer to work together to find a concept plan for the parking garage that would be acceptable architecturally and
Correct. And then
design-wise.
adding in section D to the adding the word, the add circulation plan, traffic circulation plan to
To condition
condition
D.
D.
Correct.
Makes sense? Okay, so
Don't,
should I
don't ask me to repeat that.
restate the motion that, just so for clarity, before we get a second on it, that motion is to approve the development agreement as presented with amendments to section T2, changing 6 months to 10 months, T12, adding the word project at the end of the sentence, adding an additional signature line for a managing member, and approval with conditions on a new plan for the garage, a concept plan between the city and the developer for the garage portion of the development, and then adding in condition D, a traffic circulation plan to that condition. Clear? Correct.
And
Correct.
if you would like
Yes,
to
ma'am.
add the sixth edit would be to re-letter the recitals.
Oh, correct. And we need to correct the
be
scrivener's
06.
error to re-letter the recitals. So kind of a long motion, and it was your motion, but as restated, is that okay?
You stated it eloquently.
Okay, so we now have a motion. We're looking for a second.
I will second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I'll ask you to call the roll, please.
Commissioner Kerr,
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks,
Yes.
Commissioner Mar,
Yes.
Commissioner Latzo,
Yes.
Commissioner Noble,
Yes.
Commissioner Connolly,
Yes.
Chairman Wyckoff.
Yes,
Thank you. 7-0.
motion passes. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make an announcement pursuant to state statute. So there will be a second public hearing for the approval of the development agreement. It will be held here in these chambers on February the 9th at 6 p.m. Before the Board of Commissioners. I'm announcing that pursuant to Florida Statute 168.3225 and Code Section 86-144 of the city's code. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, our next item of new business, item B is RZ 2022-01 rezoning application for 140 East Madeira Avenue. We have, is the applicant present? Make a presentation on that topic.
And I need to go ahead. This is a quasi-judicial matter. This is the rezoning of this parcel, so I need to go ahead and swear in everyone. But let me read the procedure that I would like you to follow tonight very quickly. This is a quasi-judicial proceeding where the Planning Commission acts in a quasi-judicial rather than a legislative capacity. At this quasi-judicial hearing, it is not the board's function to make law, but rather to apply law that has already been established. In this quasi-judicial hearing, the commission is required by law to make findings of fact based upon the evidence presented at the hearing and apply those findings of fact to previously established criteria contained in the Code of Ordinances in order to make a legal decision regarding the application before it. The commission may only consider evidence at this hearing that the law considers competent, substantial, and relevant to the issues. If the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at this hearing demonstrates that the applicant has met the criteria established in the Code of Ordinances, then this planning commission is required by law to find in favor of the applicant. By the same token, if the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at this hearing demonstrates that the applicant has failed to meet the criteria established in the Code of Ordinances, then the commission is required by law to find against the applicant. With that being said, I need to ask you, each one of you, have you had any ex parte communications with this applicant that you need to disclose? I'm seeing no one raising their hand or. Okay, and the other question I have is, does anyone have a conflict of interest that they feel that they need to declare on this application? I'm not seeing that either. So then I want to go back to your quasi-judicial procedures in your code book and remind you of a couple of things other than what I've already told you. That the parties to this quasi-judicial proceeding include people other than the applicant and the city. It includes affected persons who have filed a notice of intent to be a party with the Community Development Department not less than 5 days prior to the hearing. We have 4 of those. And I want to call to make sure those people are here so I know how to proceed procedurally. Is Mike Fink here? Okay. Is Candy Maiden here? Patricia Alt? Okay. And Lynn Walker? Okay, thank you. Now, pursuant to these procedures, I am to begin with a statement to you, giving you a summary of the application. The way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to read the nature of the request. The nature of the request is a rezoning application for 0.08 acres, more or less, at 140th East Madeira Avenue from R2 low-density multifamily residential to C3 retail commercial to allow for repair and restoration of personal vehicles and access to 125 150th Avenue and 130 East Madeira Avenue. I'm also supposed to advise you of the burden of proof necessary for the applicant. Under section 210 of the code, the applicant shall have the burden of proof at this hearing to show by the greater weight of the evidence that the application is consistent with the comprehensive plan and complies with all procedural requirements of the law. Conditions may be suggested by the applicant, the city, or any party, or may be imposed by the board, which are intended to assure consistency and compliance. If the quadrilateral matter is rezoning of land, which this is, once the applicant satisfies the burden of proof at the hearing, the burden shall shift to the city or other party to show by the greater weight of the evidence that maintaining and the existing zoning classification accomplishes a legitimate public purpose. In such event, the rezoning application shall be denied. And let's see if I've covered everything I need to cover. So the order of presentation tonight will be as follows. The applicant, followed by the city, followed by Patricia Alt, followed by Lynn Walker. And I would advise these 2 affected parties, Patricia Alt and Lynn Walker, if at any time during the presentation, when they're completed, if you have questions or cross-examination, please raise your hand to let me know so we can allow you to have that time to cross-examine. So with that, we'll start with the applicant, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
And I need to swear in everybody, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Anyone that's going to speak tonight, if you could stand up, raise your right hand and be sworn under oath. Anyone that's going to speak. You swear that the testimony you're about to give tonight is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. That's yes, everyone, thank you. Okay, so we'll start with the applicant. Is the applicant here tonight? All right, sir, why don't you step forward? The podium is yours. You're going to need to state your name and address.
My name is Jack Noonan. Excuse me, 17,000 Gulf Boulevard, North Reddington Beach, Florida. I own the Madeira Beach Garage. So anyway, I'm going to try to make this really, really quick. I wish I would have known that there were, I wish I had been in here before, but anyway, if I can, I'm going to show this to you all and then I'll turn it around the other way. Very quickly.
Sir, I need you to get in front of that microphone so everybody can hear you.
Very quickly, this is the a Google Maps view of the location. This is the lot that we're talking about. For decades, this lot has been used for commercial space. It is entirely blacktopped. Here is a auto lift that works. And here are other auto parked cars. With this whole area here is paved, including the rear of this building. So when I purchased this property, I purchased all 3. I just assumed that they were all the same, but they weren't. And so this was used, this entire property here was used as commercial as part of the garage for decades. Anyway, now the only reason that I'm requesting that this be changed is I made an attempt to get permits to replace the 6-foot chain link fence that surrounds the property with a nice white vinyl fence. And I was told that I couldn't do it because it wasn't commercial property. And I was told that the best way to do it was get it rezoned to commercial like it probably should have been for the last 40 years. So anyway, that's what I'm attempting to do, is attempting to clean up the property. I have a number of other things I'd like to do with the property over time, but to improve its appearance. But I'd like to replace a 40-year-old chain link fence with a new white vinyl fence around that surrounding property. And so if I show the property itself, it looks like this is, I'm going to get up here to the microphone, sorry. Here is the survey that we had done for the property to get the fence originally, and then we were not allowed to do it. But anyway, you can see that from here out at the street level on 150th Avenue, the chain link fence runs all the way around it to here and to here. And then from here, it runs all the way to here. And we actually have worked with our neighbors over here to replace this ugly fence on this side because they are commercial with a 6-foot fence that runs from the street to here. So I hope that was short enough. Thank you very much.
Okay, sir, before you step away,
Yes.
are there any questions by the Planning Commission? This is your opportunity to ask the applicant.
Yeah, so what is your long-term plan for that property?
It's going to be my personal garage. I'm lucky enough to have purchased it. And it's going to be a place where I'm a retired guy and I have a lake place up north where I have a building structure almost identical to this, where I have a welding shop and a wood shop and a mechanic's garage. And so I'm going to be converting this to my own private workshop that hopefully I'll be able to enjoy in the area for the next, hopefully if I'm a centurion, the next 25 years. So that's it. So that's my expectation. So I painted it already and I'm trying to get the asphalt resurfaced and struggling with that and trying to get the fence in and struggling with that. But that's where I'm at with it. So that's what I'm trying to accomplish. And if there's another way, I'd love to hear it. Thank you.
Hang on, don't go anywhere yet, sir. Any other questions from the Planning Commission? Yes, sir.
I have a question. Was a variance ever applied for?
I didn't know that I could do a variance.
Okay.
Hey, I'm just a guy.
No, I understand. I would think that the major concern is not what you might do with the property, but once it's rezoned and you decide to convey it to someone else, what can they do with the new zoning? And how would that impact your neighbors? That would be the concern. On a variance, you could get your fence if approved, and if the city staff recommended it, and the neighborhood, you have to have your neighbors agree to that. But it may be a much simpler.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'd love to do that if I could. But when I look at this area here, this is this is commercial, this is commercial, this is a pumping station. This whole area here is owned by the public utility, and this is commercial. So other than this one property where we have, I think the emergency team told my wife that there were 5 apartments in this unit. This is all commercial, this entire area here, except for this one. I would say this is commercial here, but except for this one here, is because this entire property has been used as commercial for a long time. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm sorry, I didn't show you all. I'm pointing at this side. And so I said that this is the property right here. And this has been used for commercial, but this is commercial. This was used as commercial. This is all commercial. And I have this one independent property here, from here to here, that really wasn't used as commercial.
Oh, no, sir, no, we don't do that. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. Okay, you'll have your opportunity to speak. You don't have your opportunity to question, so.
Okay, sorry.
Anyone
Thank
else?
you, Mr. Trust. Anyone else have any questions for the applicant?
Just one. When you held up that,
Survey or the other one?
the other one, is the vacant lot to the right of that Nope, that one. Is that commercial?
That's, I don't know, this is a,
Okay.
this is
You-
public
when you did it,
utility.
You were
Oh,
doing this.
no,
so
I
wanted
think
to
this
clarify.
lot, this lot, this lot,
Yeah.
I think these are residential.
Right.
Only
That's what I
these are
thought.
actually owned by the utility company. And there's utility stuff back here on it.
Mhm.
And so I don't know why it should be commercial either,
Yeah.
even though it is, right?
Okay, I
It's a-
just, thank you.
I have a quick question. The house that's on your property, what are the plans with that? Are you going to rent that out? Are you going to live there or?
No, it's going to be a family place. My wife is actually trying to convert it into a mid-century modern. That's when we grew up and we let all that furniture go. And now she's at various places buying it for the family. So it will be for family use and friend use.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Okay, sir, don't sit down yet. So, Ms. Alt, do you have any questions?
Yeah.
Okay, I need you to step up to the microphone. If you want to, you can come over here.
Okay, my question is, why aren't you going to get the variance? I have two houses on the street. There are many more children now on this street. And if you just want to put a fence up with no access, I don't think people will mind. What people do mind is the already commercial traffic that does not realize that this is a dead end that goes flying down our street every single day.
This is time for questions.
Okay.
You'll have your time to speak.
What? So what are you going to do about the traffic situation? That's my question, because we have traffic around the triangle.
Okay, so I expected there to be no traffic. When I first proposed to the city that I put the fence up, I didn't want a gate. They told me that I needed a gate for fire. And so the gate will only be used to maybe bring something in that's quite large, but I have access through the building, and that's the access I chose to use because I got large door in the front of the building, large door in the back of the building. That's my access to the back. That's my access to the back.
Okay.
So I didn't expect to ever have more than maybe a truck come in with some parts or something. But that would normally be delivered to the front of the building. I expect no traffic there.
Okay, my other question is, what guarantee do we have that if you make this commercial, that you're not going to build retail or do something with the house that is going to cause more traffic? I don't see a guarantee. I don't see that. And then if you sell it, what will happen then?
I don't know. I don't know.
Exactly.
But I do know that I'm expecting to be a centurion and I have 3 kids that are expecting to own it. And they're all about 50. So I expect it to be in the family for a long time.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, Ms. Walker,
Question.
do you have any questions? You still have the opportunity to present. Do you have any questions of the applicant? Okay, all right. Thank
I
you.
have a question.
Yes, sir.
Have you ever, I mean, you have a chain link fence now, correct?
Mhm.
Did you ever think of having it woven,
The chain link
which
fence,
would give you this,
the chain link fence is in really, really bad shape.
okay.
And weaving that fence wouldn't do a whole lot of good. And you can still climb a chain link fence. Listen, I've had people urinating in my backyard, all kinds of things in that area. It's not the greatest location right now. I'm hoping all of that will change over time here, but it's not. And so I'm trying to fix part of it. And I've got some other ideas for the front of how to change the walking traffic pattern to help with my neighbors on the corner and myself. So anyway, with various folks that come through that area. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, we can go on and have the city make its presentation
Okay.
now.
Thank you, sir. City, please.
Sit down.
Okay, so I combined my presentation with the rezoning and the land use applications. Here's the location, which you may be familiar with. It's located on East Madeira Avenue behind the old Madeira Beach Garage. It's a better picture of the property. The ownership of all the parcels outlined are owned by Mr. Noonan, and we are discussing this property that is outlined in red. And the applicant would like to rezone the lot from R2 to C3 and also change the land use from residential medium to residential office retail. The parcel is a paved lot with chain link fence with access to the parcels north, which is 125, 150th Ave, which is the garage, and to the rear of the parcel, west, which is right here. And that's 130 East Madeira Ave. This is next to a triplex here. And on the other side of the triplex are 2 lots that are used for utility access. Across the street is a vacant lot currently. And here is the lot outlined in red. So historical aerial imagery, which is from Google Earth, indicates this property was used for parking and access in conjunction with the adjacent auto garage for at least 20 years. So this is from 1971. It's a little blurry, but this is a little bit better. It's from 20 years ago, 2002. So as you can see, here's the garage and here's the access. Here's that triplex and then the utility access. So looking at the zoning is outlined in that black. So the neighborhood is mixed and comprised of residential on East Madeira Ave. And then there's also commercial north to it and planned development mixed use, which is the land use you'll see in the next slide. Here is the land use. So the Madeira Beach Town Center Special Area Plan is this kind of purple area right here. So that's north of it. And then you have the residential medium, which currently is residential medium. And then these are the utility lots. So the current zoning of the lot is R2, which is low density multifamily residential. The R2 zoning district correlates with the residential medium land use category of the future land use map. Permitted uses in the R2 are single family, duplex, triplex, townhouse type construction, public education facilities of the school board. Accessory uses includes private garages and carports. So you can see in the slide, but they must have a primary structure with a permitted use or have an approved special exception use to be an accessory use. So the private garage and carport is an acceptable accessory use in the R2 zoning district when associated with a principal structure. And this lot does not have a principal structure. To continue this accessory use in the R2 zoning district, the lot would need to either have a primary structure or unified with another lot, such as the garage or the single family structure, which the applicant owns as well. And the applicant has expressed interest in unifying these 3 lots in the future. So let's look at C3. The applicant requests to rezone the property to C3 retail commercial. The permitted uses in C3 are retail and personal service use, business office and financial service uses, multifamily dwelling, tourist dwelling units, restaurant, and adult entertainment establishments. The applicant requests to rezone the property to access the auto garage, which would be an allowed use in the C3 zoning district, retail and personal service uses. That the applicant is currently using the lot for personal car restoration and not as a business. So consistency with the comprehensive plan, the application is to change the zoning from R2 to C3 and change the land use category from residential medium to residential office retail. That ROR use is a correlated land use with the C3 zoning. And that residential medium is a land use with the R2 zoning district. So the land use, the proposed land use change would create a single ROR lot on Madeira Ave. The nearby intersection of 150th Avenue and Madeira Avenue has C3 zoning with planned redevelopment mixed use land use eastward to the C3 PRMU. East Madeira Ave transitions to R2 with residential medium land use. And there are 2 lots with that land use of transportation utility that we pointed out earlier. So adequate public facilities, adequate capacity is available for all facilities, and there are no proposed changes to this lot. This lot has been used as access to the auto garage for years, as you saw in the aerial photos, and the applicant plans to continue its use as access to the auto garage and for parking personal vehicles. So parking and access to the commercial lot from the residential street could be in conflict with the public interest and reduce property value of surrounding properties. Historically, this lot has been associated with that auto garage for over 20 years. The owner of this lot also owns those 2 surrounding properties that you saw earlier in this presentation. The commercial zoning and land use would remain with the property even after a future sale of the property. The zoning of commercial development on this lot could potentially create conflicts with the surrounding R2/residential medium properties of the lot if the lot was turned into a singular commercial venture. And special conditions cannot be tied to the general rezone of the land use change, and there's a potential of harm to the surrounding neighborhood. Although other commercial lots are nearby the street and directly north, which is the auto garage of this property in question. So staff recommends that the Planning Commission determines the recommendation after public input. This is a very tricky lot, and that's our recommendation. If you have any questions, let us know.
The city has no position on
Correct.
recommendation at this point. Thank you. Any questions for the city? Looking at you, Ray.
Was it discussed about having a variance for the fence versus rezoning with your previous meetings with the owner?
We did not discuss a variance. Tom, could you discuss the variance process and if it's applicable in this situation?
I don't know the answer to that question. I have not seen the application itself. I don't know whether or not the variance would be possible. That's really not for your consideration here tonight.
True, right.
His options are his options, whatever they are.
Mhm.
Don't guide your decision based upon his options.
Understood.
Yeah, it'd be based upon the evidence that you hear tonight. So I don't have an answer for you.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
sir.
just a question of, again, he applied for a fence. Why was the fence denied? I mean, I drove by there. It needs a fence.
The applicant requested to replace the fence in its current location,
Right.
which is inconsistent with the code for the R2 zoning district. We also, as soon as we received these 3 applications, it was 3 fence permits for all 3 properties. On October 7th, immediately I realized this is a singular owner of the 3 properties, and I invited him in to meet with Linda Portal, our director, and Jenny and myself to discuss what his plans were for all three properties together, because this was not likely to be his only permit for these properties. And he expressed the intent to do some improvements to the asphalt on that piece of property and all three properties. And that brought into play the fact that there is no principal structure on this lot for which paving could be an accessory, consistent with the R2 zoning that it currently has.
So it's been a continuous non-conforming use of that property.
That is correct.
And the new fence would then not be approved because of that, because once the fence wears out, it's no good anymore. Is that
Not in its current location.
okay? And that's because in the R2 zoning, you can't have a fence at the front of the property. That's a certain height, right?
You
Above
may, yes, you may not have a 6-foot
6-foot
fence
fence
in
at
the
the front of
front,
the property. It
the
can only
front
be
yard.
equivalent to the front portion of your structure,
That's correct.
right? If there were a unification of these lots, would that make it any different? Or would it have any bearing on rezonability, because it would be a unified lot, whether it's the two together or all three together? Because I know in the past, planning commissions and variances have been granted, or rezoning has been granted because it was contiguous to another type of property next to it. And I'm trying to think of an example of which property, but there was something that went from an R1 to R2 because the neighboring property was R2. So then it became, it kind of stair-stepped its way and it maintained that same buffer, if you will. The contiguous property was same category. So we sort of have that here with the one parcel, which seems to be the the one we're talking about rezoning. If that were under common ownership with the other commercial space, would that make it more logical or sensible to consider the rezoning, or is that just not?
A unity of title will not fix
Doesn't
the
matter.
problem. It will still be
It'll still be
two
a
separate
residential
zoning
lot.
categories, and the
Okay.
zoning categories would have to be changed.
I see.
And that's why he's here tonight.
Understood. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Well, would it make more sense to the city if, like what, on the same lines Mike was saying, the residential property that he owns, the house, if that was commercial as well, and then he would be, that whole corner would be commercial, and then the R2 would start back down that. That seems to make more sense, if that makes sense to the city to do it that way, or?
Rezoning all three properties to commercial.
Well, it would only be rezoning
Oh, I
two
mean,
because
but
there's
there's
already
two.
one.
And like Mike said, they butt up against commercial, and then that whole corner is commercial, and then the neighborhood starts behind him.
Yes, we discussed
So-
that as
yeah.
well, rezoning this parcel as well. Because part of the back of this property is also being used in this lot. It's all really being used like together. I think that makes sense as well. We talked about that, and we've also discussed tying these two R2 parcels together so that this access, this driveway has an accessory use. So those are some of the solutions that we proposed. But it's just a very tricky situation.
But we can't bank on any of those things because the application is simply to rezone this one individual lot,
That's correct.
correct? I mean, I can tell you, I was 13 years old and I used to go to Madeira Beach Fun Center on that corner, which is now the real estate office, and ride my bike there. And it's always been a commercial use. I mean, I knew the people that owned the Madeira Beach Garage forever, and it's always been essentially a commercial use. They tell you what, I had a big wheel in the front and a little one in the back. So anyway, that's just a little historical reference there from the 1970 something photograph is probably more like it. But anyway, here and there. Any other questions for the city?
Not yet, sir.
Yep. Thank you. Mr. Trask.
Yeah, so this would be the opportunity for Ms. Alt to ask any questions of city staff if she has any, followed by Ms. Walker. Ms. Alt, do you have any questions to city staff? If you can go right to that podium now that it's free. Questions only at this point.
What will happen to the traffic that is already an issue between East Madeira Avenue and 150th.
So hold on a
No.
second.
Well,
That's for the city staff to
The
answer.
city-
That
If
question
there-
isn't to the planning commission.
if-
That's the city staff.
if there is a gate that is accessible, that's why I'm asking what will happen to that traffic? Because we're being told now that it's not going to be used except for his own use.
Mhm.
But that will not stop once it's rezoned in the use of more traffic. Before, when it was the garage, the only people that came in and out of that gate were the people that worked there. And those were their cars that they parked there.
Ms. Alt, questions.
Mhm.
So that you've
So-
asked a question of
Yes,
city
I did.
staff and you need to let the city staff respond. You'll still have the opportunity to present whatever you want in just a few minutes.
Mhm.
Okay.
So currently there is a gate right there. The applicant has not expressed any change of the use right now, but that does not mean that in the future it could change.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Ms. Walker, do you have any cross-examination questions? If so, step up to the podium, please, so we can get you on the microphone.
Is it on?
Yes, it is.
So those two lots are R2. The house that the gentleman that owned the garage, he lived in there. And then he rented it to other people. So why don't we just keep those R2? Have two
These are
homes? Okay.
questions.
Can the delineation line between the two R2 lots and the commercial lot that's on 150th, well, can it be delineated somehow with a fence or whatever? Can we just separate that so that they're clearly, that would be probably by the owner, I think, but is that a city question? I'm not sure.
That's a city question. They're trying to figure it out.
I
So-
mean, it looks like the property kind of tips over a little bit.
We met with the applicant, Mr. Noonan, on December 9th to propose to him unifying the two currently R2 zone lots that he owns. Hi.
Sorry, I thought she was speaking
Oh,
for some
okay.
reason. Sorry.
It's me. Hello. We met with Mr. Noonan on December 9th to propose an alternative option to him, just so he was aware of it, of unifying those two lots through a unity of title that are both currently zoned R2. In order to make improvements to the asphalt and to bring them into compliance with the code, he would then have to create a buffer between these two residentially zoned districts and his commercially zoned property, the auto garage. Currently, the back of all three of those properties are paved and are used, the back of all three are used together, and creating that buffer would be a change. It was something that we offered to him.
He should have done his due diligence. I mean, that's his problem. He needs to separate it. I don't, sorry. That
I
was
can
my
only
question,
answer
if it could
questions.
be-
I'm sorry.
Okay, if there's no other questions to city staff by the two affected parties, Mr. Chairman, now would be the opportunity for the public to speak.
Okay. We'll invite anyone from the public who would like to speak on the topic. If you step up to the podium, please state your name or address, and please keep it to 3 minutes or the buzzer will go off.
Chuck Dillon, 529 Lillian Drive. Enough with this rezoning. It's residential. Do you guys want a parking lot or C3 next door to you? It's not right. You know, they did it at Caddy's. They tried doing it there. Don't approve it. I'm sorry, the guy's a nice person. He might have good intentions, but then he goes out tonight and gets hit. His kids say, oh, look at that property. We can move all of that together. Zone it and put a hotel up there. Thank you. Not changing residential.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Please, sir, step up, state your name.
My name is Joe Cassidy. I live at 151 East Madeira Avenue. Those have been residential lots as long as I can remember. Our street is a nice little residential street. We would really like to keep it that way. We've already lost across the street. You see at the corner, the three commercial lots, those were residential. And I turned it into a parking lot, and I guess that one vacant lot would be commercial now. Or maybe it isn't, but well, that's an old one, but I think maybe I'm looking at it a little different. But if you change the zoning, this guy's not going to live forever, and his kids aren't going to live forever. Whoever gets the lot, it's going to be another restaurant. And with the C3 zoning, I mean, you can build a restaurant, right? That's just what we needed. Another daiquiri deck right at the end of our street. That corner is way too much traffic there already. And if you got a restaurant, it'll be one of these days if you change the zoning. So I'd like to see it stay residential. I've been on that street for 40 years. And it's a nice street. We got nice people. We just want to keep it that way. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for any comments? Come on up.
Roger Gersten, 171 East Madeira Avenue. I think I only get 2.5 minutes because I used 30 seconds already. Anyway, the guy bought the property. He knew what he bought. He bought it as it sits today. They come in here and say that he's using it he wants to change it because of a fence. It's a lot of time, aggravation, a lot of meeting to come here to make a change for a fence. I think there's got to be another way. If that's all his intention is to have the fence put up, and it does need a fence. But if his intentions are other, then I think you guys got to reject his proposal for this because it's not an area that we need another daiquiri shack like Joe said. So that's my piece. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any more for any more? Please, ma'am, feel free to step forward.
My name is Audrey Sevier, and I live at 201 East Madeira Avenue. My husband and I bought on East Madeira Avenue knowing that we were going to have a planned development. I wanted to walk to shops and I wanted to walk to restaurants. However, we bought on a residential street. And yes, there is commercial around that property, but what you don't realize is the lot across the street is owned by a couple that's going to build a house. And then there was a new house built next to that. And I love what he has done to the garage. He's painted it. It does need a new fence. I wish we can work out some type of variance. But if you zone that commercial and we have an increase of cars on that street, it's a disaster waiting to happen. I don't know if you guys ever pull out on East Madeira Avenue, but we have to take that hairpin turn. No one stops at that stop sign. People are doing U-turns right in front of us. I'm constantly dodging traffic. I'm walked 4 miles a day. I walk around that Bermuda Triangle, as we call it, with the fear that I'm going to get hit by somebody who's doing a U-turn, who's taken that right on red at 150th and Gulf Boulevard and accelerating. It's just, we don't need that to be rezoned to commercial. We don't need another restaurant. We don't need retail, and we don't need it to be a C3. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else?
So
yes.
Ms. Alt should have an opportunity
ma'am.
to present first. Ms. Alt? Okay.
Yeah, I've lived on the street for 30 years, and everything Audrey just said and then some. I've called probably 3 times regarding that. So the thought of turning that property into commercial, I think, has us all extremely worried. I highly object to this property being rezoned. And I think everybody highly objects to it being rezoned. A fence is another story. We can talk about that later, but I object. That's all I have to say.
Okay, then Ms.
Thank you.
Alt.
Ms. Alt, do you want to?
Patricia Alt, 220 East Madeira Avenue and 210 East Madeira Avenue. I worry because not only is the triangle, Bermuda Triangle, a terrible, terrible spot to try to drive down the street, to get out, to walk, but we are also a dead end, which most people don't even know. We have tons of commercial vehicles, tons of people who think they can cut through and they fly down the street. So we also have a lot of young kids now that are living on East Madeira Avenue. We have a lot of mixed residents who walk every single day. And to tell you the truth, I almost feel like I need to put my own speed bump out there. So if you have this changing, and it does at some point go into a restaurant or some kind of retail, my worry is that the whole neighborhood is going to be changed with all the traffic. And it's just very worrisome. That's it.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? We cover everybody?
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, I would suggest if city staff is to make a summary statement, they have the opportunity to do that. And also the applicant, he would finish last to make a summary statement if he wanted to.
Thank you for outlining that, Mr. Trask. Did you have anything in summarization? Post-conference?
We'd just like to reiterate that we suggest that you listen to the public comments today to decide.
As we always do. Okay. Mr. Noonan, would you like to say anything in closing?
All I'm trying to do is clean up the property some more. I'd like to be able to fix the asphalt. I'm unable to do that if it's residential. I don't know how he was able to put it in if it was residential. I'm unable to fix the fence if it's residential. And I'm unable to do any kind of changes in the front. Actually, next door, if you look at the topographical map that we had before, to put the fence in on the, which would be the west side, I had to go to my neighbors that were commercial, and I had to fill out all the paperwork for them and submit it. And now I think we have permits in to replace the fence between the real estate office and the house, and then all the way up and along the garage there. So I'm willing to do anything to make this thing happen. And so I went to my neighbors and said, will you sign this stuff if I fill it out and pay for it? And they said, yes. So I'm going to get one piece of the fence, but I'm unable to get the rest of it. And I'm unable to get the blacktop just resurfaced, just like they did over at Winn-Dixie over here. So anyway, that's what I'm trying to accomplish. If you got other ideas, I'm happy to do them. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so that seems to be everybody that's got testimony to provide at this point. So I guess it's up to the members of the Planning Commission for discussion.
I'll start.
I knew you would.
I kinda thought you would. Based on public comment and what I brought up earlier about it seems that Mr. Noonan is a great neighbor to have. The issue is what happens when Mr. Noonan and his children no longer want to own this property because of whatever reason, and what can be put in its place. For my brief time being here, the garage is a identifiable space building that goes to the nature of Madeira Beach. And I'm sure their neighbors would like to help them out, but I can't see impacting that whole residential street so that he can make changes to his property and eventually, who knows what could happen.
Anyone else got anything they want to bring up? Charlie?
I think if we could somehow have the town give him the fence and don't change the zoning, I think that would accomplish something. But the people are right about the traffic on that. I know exactly because I go that way a lot and they do rip up and down that street. And they are correct. If you change it, it will just impact it that much more. But if his fence is deteriorated that bad, I think it would behoove the town to let him put a fence up.
Yep. Unfortunately, that's not for us to consider at this point. So we're stuck with the matter at hand of the rezoning application as well as the potential land use change standing on its own merits. So anybody else got anything?
Yeah, I drove by and looked at it before I came here, so the fence is definitely an issue. I know that's not the issue at hand, but from everything that's here, I don't see this as a good reason to change the zoning on the piece of property.
Good. Anyone else, or do we want to have a motion, some direction?
I'd like to make a motion that we reject the rezoning RZ 2022-01 and the land use change LUC 2022-01.
Yep.
Do that
Oh, we have to
separate.
do them
We're only
separate-
doing-
You can only do
separate
one at a time.
motions? Okay. That we reject the rezoning application RZ 2022-01.
Okay, so we have a motion for denial of the application for rezoning RZ 2022-01. Do we have a second?
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. This time, I'll ask you to call the roll, please.
A second.
We got one.
Commissioner Kerr,
So a yes would signify rejection. Yes.
Correct.
Commissioner Latzo,
Yes.
Commissioner Connolly,
Yes.
Commissioner Mar,
Yes.
Commissioner Noble,
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks,
Yes.
Chairman Wyckoff.
Yes. So the motion passes to reject the application for rezoning. So the next item on the agenda is the land use change. Not sure if if we formally need to go through the whole thing or if it can be withdrawn or.
No, it's not withdrawn. So
Okay.
what I would suggest, Mr. Chair, is to ask city staff if they have anything additional to present. If not,
Right.
allow the applicant any additional time to present, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. So there you have it. Does the city have anything to add?
No, we do not have anything additional to add.
Thank you. Mr. Noonan, you have anything to add? Since the zoning was rejected, it's a separate application for the land use change. We have the right to go through the process again for the land use change. Okay, Understood. So no further comment from the applicant. So do we have anyone else that wants to speak to the matter from the public? Okay.
Chuck Dillon again, 529 Lillian. Isn't this the idea? I mean, of the planning commission? Let the man combine his areas and improve the thing. I don't know whether or not that's possible. You've got commercial and you've got residential. And he's purchased this property, and to possibly let him put a fence up, improve the thing, that would be a good thing. As to what exactly has to happen, I don't know. I mean, but it seems like they've been trying to do something, but as to whether or not it might come back to you guys of just improvement of the 3 properties. Just food for thought. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Ms. Alt?
Ms. Ault? Anything from you?
Then followed by Ms. Walker.
Yeah, Ms. Walker next, right?
I think most people here do not have an issue with the fence itself being, replaced, put up. It's been there forever. You grandfather a lot of other things in to the town. So this has been an existing fence forever. To have it replaced, I don't see that it's a problem. It's an eyesore. It is not very nice. And if that is all Mr. Noonan wants to do, I don't see why that can't be grandfathered in, just to replace the fence.
Unfortunately, it's out of our purview at this point. Ms. Walker, you have anything you'd like to say? I just said that's out, the granting a variance or anything is not what we're here to do, and that's outside of our scope of what we can and cannot do at this point in time. All we can do is address the topic at hand. Whether a variance request will be granted is a whole nother matter that either comes before us or the special magistrate. So,
Yeah, I mean, he could put podocarpus all the way around it and
Yeah.
do a, pervious, I mean, there's other things he could do.
yeah,
Doesn't have to even put a new fence up. He could put it, I don't know.
understood. Okay, thank you. I think everybody's on the same page with, we'd love to see a new fence and let them improve the parking lot. However, the channels that are there are not allowing that to happen per se as maybe we would like to see it happen. So fortunate or unfortunate as it may be, this is where we're at right at the moment. So does anyone on the planning commission have anything they would like to add to the matter or bring forward a motion?
It's my understanding that the land use changes from residential medium to residential office/retail. It has nothing to do with tying them together. So based on that, I'd like to make a motion to reject the land use change application, LUC 2022-01.
Okay, so we have a motion to reject the land use change application LUC 2022-01. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Kerr,
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks,
Yes.
Commissioner Mar,
Yes.
Commissioner Latzo,
Yes.
Commissioner Noble,
Yes.
Commissioner Connolly,
Yes.
and Chairman Wyckoff.
Yes.
Thank you, 7-0.
So the motion is passed to reject the application for land use change. Moving on to any old business, city or Mr. Attorney, any old business from anyone on the planning
sir.
commission, old business? Any administrative or staff presentations at this time?
No.
Okay. Any discussion from the planning commission in general? I guess at this point, it would be a good time. I mean, is there something we could do to help Mr. Noonan with a recommendation to get him and the neighbors to where they want to be?
City staff is always open to sit down with him and
Yeah.
present him his options and
Okay.
discuss it with him further.
Okay, it just
Yeah.
seems unfortunate to have gone through all this and the expense that he's incurred to get to this point, unfortunately, where it seems like there may or may not have been a
Well,
simpler solution.
I'd just
but-
like to while the neighbors are still here, I'd like to just state that if Mr. Noonan does apply for a variance, you could surely help him by submitting letters of recommendation to the special magistrate prior to his hearing. That'll go a long way.
Certainly would. Certainly would.
Okay, we can't do that from the audience. ma'am.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Thanks. Okay, so any other discussion from the planning commission members? Like to bring forward anything you want to bring up? Okay, our next meeting scheduled for Monday, February 7th at 6 PM in the commission chambers. Any informational materials? I don't even know what that's about. No, we got nothing. Okay, so we'll call this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.